we are back on time, and we're now going to be joined by a live link. Are we ready to go, gentlemen? Are we ready to go with Marcus on the live link?
I am ready, sir. Good to see you.
Oh, Marcus, where are you? Let's see you.
Can you see me?
Yay! There he is, Marcus.
I so wish I was there.
Introduce Marcus. Marcus is the Vice President of Red Team Thinking. Very often in the business agility space, in the agile space, you'll hear people like me giving all of these explanations. And then there requires this linkage between the explanation that you are being given and actualizing that thing. What's required is a process called thinking. Marcus is an expert on critical thinking. We're very fortunate to have Marcus. He has led a number of very senior organizations, including BP, and he is a very high-ranking officer, formerly, of our RAF. Well, that's over there, back in the UK. A wing commander, no less. So it's a privilege and an honor to introduce Marcus Dimbleby. Marcus, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Robin. It's a pleasure. I'm so sorry I can't make it out there. I've got the BBC this afternoon and Space Force, made up name, in America this evening. So unfortunately, I can't be there. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. As Robin sort of coined my background, very breadth and depth of experience, 20 plus years in the military, then working as a consultant. Please don't hold that against me, in different types of government agencies, and eventually ended up in Lloyds Banking Group. So I left the consultancy due to their ethics, went into Lloyds Banking Group, became the head of Agile for their group transformation, did about 4 years there, then went on to Royal Bank of Scotland, and then have since worked with HSBC, BP, and then I met Bryce Hoffman, who's the author of Red Teaming, founder of Red Team Thinking, and we partnered up about 4.5 years ago now. So I'm the managing partner there with him and the vice president, as Robin mentioned. Why am I here? Because I love this man. He is my brother from another mother. We've known each other several years, worked together at BP, and this was taken back in London at Scrum Day London. So hopefully we'll be back together again soon. So I want to dive in with a question. What business are you all in? If you've got access, grab your mobile phone, jump on, you can scan the QR code, or you can go to menti.com, type in the code you can see there, 74281531. What business are you in? Love to hear. If you thought you were going to sit back and listen for 30 minutes without engaging, you're in the wrong place. Okay, I've got people coming in now. Glad this code's working. Got telecommunications. Got somebody's phone number. I'll call you later. There you go, the beauty of Menti. So you can see this now, it's all anonymous, so don't be shy. Cylinder manufacturing, governance. Again, with a room full of many people, banking, telecoms, I'm expecting we're going to get an array of different businesses, and that's absolutely expected. But you're all wrong. I know, who's this guy coming across the pond from Cyprus telling us what business we're in? I hate to break it to you, but you're all in the people business. Doesn't matter what sector you work for, what organization, wherever you are in the world, you're in the people business. And I've yet to meet an automated AI, fully driven and fully run Skynet style organization yet. So until then, we're in the people business. And why is that important? This is an array of the clients we work with. And I don't show this to go look at who we work with. It's look at the difference. Look at the spread of different companies, sectors, organizations. We work with governments, cabinet office, frontline operations, military, banking, telecommunications, helicopter groups, fast market consumer goods, media companies, because all of these people, all of these organizations are focused on people. And 85% of the problems that these organizations face are all the same, because the majority of the problems are people problems. So I loved when I saw what Nana sent me, this title for this awesome conference, Maximizing the Power of Our Creative Imagination Using Agile to Create Organizations that are Best Suited for Human Beings to Thrive. And the words leapt out there, creative imagination and human beings to thrive. It's what I'm all about, and I feel really passionate about enabling that. Because we are absolutely creative as individuals. As children, we are born natural contrarians. We're curious from day one. We're always asking questions. We're always pushing buttons. We're always exploring and investigating. But then as we get into the system, we get into what I call the conformity conveyor belt. And that enthusiasm, that energy, that drive and curiosity gets beaten out of us by the system. And eventually we end up like this in the workplace, wondering what we're doing there. Now, the latest Gallup poll for 2023 showed the lowest engagement results in the workplace for 9 years, 23% globally, Europe being the lowest at 13%, with America at 32% as the highest. But that's appalling. 70+% of people are disengaged in the workplace. 15% are actively sabotaging the workplace itself. So what can we do about that? This is why there's a scale of challenge out there today, and beautifully coined here by Ian Conn, who is the CEO of Centrica or British Gas. And he said this 2018, long before COVID kicked in. It's moving too fast. It is revolution, not evolution. And there are many accelerations at once. One of the biggest problems is the difficulty of mankind to cope with it. I don't know whether political leaders or business leaders can easily handle it. And what he was talking about is this new landscape we're living in called the VUCA world. And almost predicting his own downfall, a year later, they'd lost $1 billion in profit. And a year later, Ian stood down as the CEO in the month before COVID started. Now, this VUCA world we're facing into is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And in recent years, a H has been added because of the hyperconnectivity we now see with a digital network across the globe. Anything we do or say as a leader is automatically cast across the internet and accessible by everybody. So what happens across the other side of the globe can affect us in the workplace, in our family homes, almost within the next 24 hours. So this is the new landscape. And when you look at why businesses fail, it's not often because of external. We did this the other night with a client and they had 37 reasons. 34 of them were all internal. If you look at this list here, everything on the left, all internal driven behaviors and activities. And this is why we say that most businesses die from self-inflicted wounds. There's far too much focus on the external perceived threats and far little focus on enabling that creative imagination and the human beings within to become capable, critical thinkers. But don't worry, we've got this new way of working that came along to fix all of this, the wonderful Agile, which I'm a big proponent of, given my background. But they continue to fail. 20 years in the making, and we're still seeing failure rates of 70% plus, which is quite appalling. And you've got to wonder why. Well, again, when you look at what the number one challenge is, the good old Business Agility Institute, my friend Evan Layburn, comes up with the reasons. 3 years on the trot, we had leadership as the number one failure. Not the tools, not the coaches, not the problem, leadership. In 2021, mid-COVID, it was deemed to be change fatigue. Leadership was number 2. And funny old thing, the year later, it was back to leadership. So we have to be very aware of what's causing the problems. If you can go on mute, please, that'd be great. And this leadership issue, right, why is it? There's an institutionalized command and control culture, right? There's a desire for these individuals to change, but it's very, very, very hard to change your old habits. Now, you can teach an old dog new tricks. I've proven that with my dog taking him out skateboarding here. But there's this command and control mindset, which is almost a dirty word in the Agile community. But the problem with command and control for me is they lock it as a pairing. The and is a rubber band. You maintain command at the top, but you should be able to push control down through your organization, and that's not happening. And if you want to talk about what these individuals look like, these are what I call SPOMs, stale, pale, old males. And Dave Solomon is a prime example. This is Dave's view, who's the CEO of Goldman Sachs, about remote working. It's an aberration. We are quickly going to correct this like it's some disease. Okay, so that was Dave's idea. So Dave tried to mandate this problem and solve it with his solution.
Is I sent wrong you? Wasn't the right one?
Can you go on mute, please, Edwin? And a year later, he tried to do that. And funny old thing, when he mandated it, he gave people 2 weeks' notice, and 50% of the employees showed up. And Goldman Sachs are in a world of pain right now with their profit. So again, don't engage your people in the right way, people will walk. So we have this command and control, which isn't command and control. As I said, command and control isn't a bad thing. What we're seeing is command and comply. Do as we say. That's from old school behaviors. It's from fear. They're as scared as everyone else is about what's going on in this VUCA world. They don't trust people. They don't trust people to do things as good as they do, and they don't understand this changing world. And therefore, they can't delegate to the next level, something we call devolved decision-making or mission command, as the military call it. And then they're all obsessed with speed. We're all operating under this cosh of speed. It's the number one metric for most directorships and boards. And as Wyatt Earp says here, it's fine. Fast is fine, but you've got to be on target. You've got to be accurate. You need to take your time, but in a hurry. I love that. My simplified phrase of that is slow down to speed up. Take the time to be clear, to be capable, and then at that point, step off and you'll move at a much greater pace, but you'll also maintain the pace. Your wheels won't come off at speed and cause a car crash that agile transformations have become. So overall, we can see that leadership has really dissolved itself almost, and we have broken trust amongst the workplace between the top and the bottom of the pyramid. And also this way of agile working, and there are many other ways of working, these 21st century ways of working, I call them, they don't work with 20th century ways of thinking because we're still seeing this old school mindset back in the MBAs of the business schools of the 80s and 90s. And here's my view. Again, no stats to back this up, just my personal perspective. So agile continues to fail for these two reasons. Ineffective leadership, backed up by BAI, and a lack of critical thinking. All of this is aided by a delusion by something called an agile mindset, which doesn't exist. It's a belief and another sell point by the consultancies, but all of these things are lacking in today's world, and hence we're seeing mass failure. So why critical thinking then? You've got the stats from BAI. Now look at the stats from the World Economic Forum. 2020, critical thinking is the #1 required skill set. Okay, number 2 is problem solving. Even McKinsey, who don't get much things right, got this right. The demand for these higher cognitive skills are going to grow. Problem is, though, they're also the most lacking. Again, 93% of executives state that they do not find resumes and CVs with these skill sets that you see here on them. And these are what they need for their organizations. These are natural human behaviors. These are what we do best. A bunch of kids in school do these things continuously. So at some point in our progression into the workplace, we lose the ability to do these. 2023, moving on, the results came out again this year. The top 10 skills, still critical thinking at the top, now split into analytical and creative. That's now. Top 10 skills on the rise, the increase of these capabilities, still number 1 and 2. Tech and AI moving now into the top 10. Leadership has gone. Now by 2027, still in pole position and second place, thinking. AI's moved up, leadership's back in 4th place, and resilience, flexibility, and agility. Those are top 5 skills that are going to keep you alive and surviving and thriving for the next 50 years. The problem today is, though, 96% of boards are focusing on AI and big data. They're still not giving the thinking element the due cause it deserves and not focusing on their people. So if we want to get creative imagination, if we want to make sure those human beings can thrive, we need to come up with a different way of thinking, because we can't solve the problems that we created using the same kind of thinking back then. So what does this new way of thinking look like? Critical thinking, we call it red team thinking. It's a cognitive capability. It's engaging our brains. It's not off a consultant shelf like a toolkit. It's a mindset shift and a set of tools that allow us to do that. And in doing so, allow us to engage critical thinking. Right, if I asked everyone in the room who's a critical thinker, most people put their hand up. Just like the businesses that you're in, you're wrong. Our brains by default are lazy. We are not critical thinkers. We have to learn the skill and we have to actively engage our brains to do it. In doing this thinking type, you expose threats, which everyone's looking for, but also you see opportunities. And that's what's going to make organizations survive, is seeing the opportunities that float by that their competition miss. It allows that distributed decision-making. It allows you to cascade responsibility, decision-making down through the organization to where the information is most prevalent and relevant. And then finally, it allows you to encourage diversity of thought. Now, diversity without inclusion is a delusion. And all these D&I programs that are running through organizations are causing more harm than they are good. Here's why we need diversity of thought. We need it to face into these new world challenges that I talked about. In the VUCA world, as Tim Berners-Lee here, who created the internet, says, we need diversity of thought. And we get that through having a diverse workforce. But if you don't have inclusion and allow those people to speak up and be engaged, then you're missing a trick. And that's what these tools do. Talked about psychological safety in the past. You may have heard of this term from Amy Edmondson. It's allowing us all to speak up safely, to challenge without fear of repercussion. But we see low levels of psychological safety across many organizations. And therefore, we get a culture of silence that she talks about here, and this Cassandra culture. I love this. This is from Greek mythology, where if you speak up, you get belittled, or if you speak up and warn people, you get ignored. So again, what does that mean? People's engagement goes down. So let's dive in now. How does red team thinking help? Here's a couple of tools I want to go through and talk you through and give you an idea of how they work. So ESOBAST, real easy. Everybody speaks once before anybody speaks twice. Nana's mum sent me this photograph of him in school. Again, applying by the rules of the tools, puts his hand up, waits to speak, lets everyone else speak after him before he speaks again. So by allowing everyone to speak once before someone speaks twice, you stop those alphas dominating the conversation. You stop the same people all the time speaking up and no one else getting a word in edgeways. So ESOBAST, everybody speaks once before anybody speaks twice. A game changer in meetings, in planning sessions, in general conversation. The next one, this tool is called Think, Write, Share. Does what it says on the tin. At this point, I tell you this is facepalm coaching, because you're going to put your hand on your face and go, I can't believe he's teaching me this. I can't believe how simple this is. I can't believe I haven't done it before. But it's super easy. It provides anonymity. So it gives you that psychological safety instantly out of the can. All right. People say, oh, no, you need trust to have psychological safety. You need support from leadership. Nonsense. You can use tools and techniques that will create the environment where anonymity allows psychological safety, allows people to speak up. This way, you get all ideas surfaced. Everyone in the room is going to contribute and surface their ideas. Because what normally happens if you don't use this tool, the best idea sits in the corner with that introvert individual with gold between their ears, but they don't speak up and share. It ensures all voices are heard. People feel engaged. Even if you don't go with their suggestion, it doesn't matter. They feel that they've contributed and they feel they've been engaged and listened to.
Thank you.
And it's a quick and easy technique to ensure people are engaged. You're seeing people sit idly, quietly, or loafing off of other people's answers, we call that. They don't do that anymore. They can now step up, speak up, and engage. So let's see how we do this. As I said, it's super easy. We pose the question. You come in the room, you pose the question, or you write it on the board, and that's it. Silence. Nobody say anything as the leader in the room. Don't preamble the question. Just write down the question. And then you ask everybody to think. Literally, put a timer on the clock, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and actively engage your brain. And what happens here is we go into what's called system 2 thinking. We start to become rational and logical. And when we're like that, our likely responses are more likely to be correct. If we do system 1, which is irrational and intuitive and quick, it's more likely to be incorrect. So we think about the question. And while our brain will leap to an answer straight away, by thinking for a minute or two, you may often come up with a different answer. Then we ask you to write it down. 2 reasons why we do this. Writing now makes your brain focus even more and become more concise in your answer. But by writing it down, when you come to share, you're not worried about somebody asking you and having to remember what you wrote. You've got it written down. So you can now actively listen. And active listening is a core skill to listen to what other people are saying and start to understand what their actual contribution to the question is. and then we share the answer with a group. You can do this anonymously online. If you're in a classroom, you can use Post-its with all the same color pens, and you just mix them up, share them out to each other, or put them all up on a board, and the facilitator can lead through. So again, you're maintaining anonymity throughout if you need to do that. Real simple. So let's practice. Here's a question. How should Agile enable a creative imagination? No, I wrote should because I don't believe it does. So if you could, how should Agile enable a creative imagination? I'm going to give you 1 minute to think, and then I'll share a link where you can share your answer. Okay, when you're ready, feel free to write your answer down in Menti, same as before. Again, what this allows you to do is very quickly get the wisdom of the crowd. You're sourcing the intelligence of the group very quickly, anonymously. You can do this asynchronously. We did this last week with a client across 12 countries and 900 individuals. You can imagine the data you can get, the rich quality of response. And while it's anonymous, it gives everybody the comfort to say what they feel. And therefore, you can do the analysis afterwards. So again, let's have a look at what's coming in. So diverse thought, that's what we need. We talked about human engagement, leadership, progress, trust experience. I'm hoping that's trust experience, unless we're talking about baking bread. Again, no idea is useless. Great one. Let's not dismiss anything that anybody says. Let's consider it. Saying what you think, adapting, having an open mind. All of these things that we talk about that Agile's been banging on about for the last 20 years, but still hasn't somehow enabled to make this a common way of working for all of us today. And that's again down to a lack of leadership and a lack of effective critical thinking. Okay, keep adding those in there. Brilliant. So how do we do this? You can enable critical thinking by either training people to do this, train a cadre within your organization who become the subject matter experts, because as I said, you have to learn this and you have to train others to do it. It's not a default status. You can have your core capability internally to do it. You can have people come in and facilitate and lead you through a critical thinking session where you're not learning the tools, you're there to get an outcome. You can have one-on-one coaching. We talked about leadership, so we work with lots of people at leadership senior levels who are struggling with this by their own admission. So you spend time one-on-one coaching them, and then you cascade it across the teams. You can do presentations, just as we're doing today. We did this to 5,000 people at an electric organization a couple of weeks ago, to give everybody in the organization some of these basic tools and a flavor of how this can actually make a difference. And if you can have that opened by some senior member from the executive to say, look, here's what we want for our organization. We see these problems. We're struggling with this ourselves. We'd like you all to be critical thinkers, and this is the first step. It's a really powerful enabler to getting what you need to that creative imagination and enabling humans to think as they should. So what is it that needs to shift? Again, people think you need to change culture and mindset. I've been in organizations where I've gone, Marcus, can you change the culture? And I sort of look around and go, sure, where is it? Has it got handles and wheels somewhere? I can move it around. Nonsense. You can't change culture. I can't even change mindset. Okay. As much as I'm an expert, as Robin said in this stuff, I can't change your mindset. But what I can do is change your behaviors instantly. Just by using, as we said, everyone speaks once, just by using think, write, share. Instant behavioral changes that you can put in place in your company, your organization, at home. And by doing that, you're going to change mindset. Because over time, those behavioral changes will shift your perspective, which will start to alter your mindset. That in turn changes the culture. You do that at scale enough across an organization, and then that culture becomes a prevailing learning capability that evolves, focusing on innovation, and you get this virtuous circle of behaviors continue to evolve, and the mindset and culture does likewise. That's how you do this. Change behaviors, don't try and change culture. And a great comment here from Christian Johansson. You can see him on our podcast, one of the CEOs we've worked with. He realized that this isn't just a power tool for helping him and his executives to make better decisions. It allowed him to shift the culture of the organization in the right direction they wanted. So as the VUCA world changed outside, they could take the time to do the analysis and pivot the company exactly where they needed it to go by bringing people on board, by having multiple teams across different countries across the EMEA region, allowing them to engage and bring forward that requirement. Worked with the NATO headquarters. We had a young female intern. Imagine that, a 20-year-old female intern, civilian, in a group headquarters for 6 months of we have a load of gnarly military guys. And we did a week-long program. They came up with 10 proposals. And when they outbriefed the general at the end of the week, the colonel running the program stood up and said, "Sir, I have to tell you, of these 10, 5 of them came from the young lady at the back of the room." And the general turned around and said, how the hell? How the hell did that happen? And she stood up and she said these words: "If it wasn't for these tools, I would not have spoken up all week." So she had anonymity. She had the freedom to speak up. And after a couple of days, she didn't need that. She was confident enough. And also the team respected her values and inputs to listen to her, which was phenomenal to see, which would have never have happened without them. And then Jose Corella, head of strategy and transformation, ran a large agile transformation program at Kimberly-Clark. And that was failing. They trained everyone up in Scrum, everyone in ProSci, and it was continually failing. And they brought us in and we helped their team understand what about critical thinking, train them all up in the tools and techniques, and this helped them unlock their program, help them engage with leadership so they could understand what this is all about and why it was effective. So a final question. Let me just slide it across. What one thing can organizations do to help their people thrive? Talked about creative imagination. How can you now help the people thrive in your organization? What one thing can they do? Brilliant. Allow them to think. My Lord, the fact we need to have permission to think is shocking, isn't it? But it's true. Focus on the teams, train people, psychological safety, empower, provide the tooling to do this, good working conditions. Again, none of this is rocket science. None of this is difficult. So why is it not happening? Again, it's a leadership problem. Helping educate our leaders to enable this. And again, if you turn this into the ROI, if you turn this into, if we increase engagement, we're going to get increased revenue and profit. And it's going to save us wasting money on training new individuals. So lots of great suggestions there. I'll make sure I share all these with you afterwards so you can take them away and back to your organizations. Because again, lots of great suggestions in literally 30 seconds using the tools and the wisdom of the crowd. So I know we're on a tight timeline. I want to keep us on track, or Robin will chase me down. So what can we do? Change our behaviors today to increase imagination, innovation, and engagement. Real easy. Big room thinking. Look at what we've just done today. Forget big room planning. Start using those people in the room to think and engage them and source the wisdom between their ears. ESOBAST. Everybody speaks once before anybody speaks twice. Super simple. Use it tomorrow. And use Think, Write, Share. Use it yourself. And even before Think, Write, Share, I have something called SBT. stop, breathe, think. Just allow yourself that moment of mental mindfulness to think about the question, take a breath, and then go into think, write, share. Rocket quick. Hopefully I'm on time, Robin.
Yes, of course.
Any questions? And if we don't have time for questions, then by all means, feel free to engage with me there on LinkedIn or my email. Brilliant. I'm all yours. I could do this for all day. So compressed 30-minute time frame.
So let's have a round of applause for that really informative presentation from Mark. Marcus, thank you so much for that.
Thank you all for engaging.
Always provocative, always thought promoting. And what I would encourage, you've got some great ideas through that exercise to take back to your organizations. Use them. It's free consultancy. Leverage it.
I'm not a consultant.
I know you don't like that, Marcus.
I'm an unconsultant.
Here's the key. It's really about focusing on thinking that Marcus has got us to contemplate here. And this is an exercise we've used, myself and Addy, to great effect, very, very quickly and very, very effectively. So I would encourage you to take that away. It's incredibly valuable. So anyway, enough from me. Let's hear from you guys in the audience. Have we got any questions for Marcus? Ruth is at the back there with a mic, a roaming mic.
Thank you, Ruth.
Marcus. Shyness descended upon you. You guys are not shy. You know you've got to. Who's got a question for the wing commander?
I create a new slide in Menti so they can have their questions there for later.
Yeah.
Mine has to do with slow decision making. If you're in a setup that decision making is not fast enough, what do you do to activate that line of thought? I don't know.
If you don't have so the situation is your decision making isn't fast enough, and therefore how do you accelerate that pace? So for me, using these tools do that, and I find that the fear of executives, they think these are going to slow them down, where it's actually the opposite. They make decisions, or they try to make them either too slow because of the processes that they put in place, or they make them too fast and they're invariably wrong. If you use these tools and techniques, and there's many other tools, another dozen plus, they allow you to get the analysis you need, which brings the information together, which then brings the different people together. The key for us in making effectively fast decisions is having diversity of thought. If you allow the C-suite to sit in their top floor office with 6 individuals around a room who are all those invariably stale, pale, old males, you're not going to get the quality decision you need. So for me, it's educating them in this new way of thinking, new processes and techniques, and then using it and then seeing how quickly, not only how quickly the decisions are made, but how effective those decisions are made. Because we talk to loads of people, oh, Marcus, I make super fast decisions. But yeah, but in 2 months, the wheels came off and you've just lost your company X million. So I think it's an education piece. It's a simple piece of just using these tools and techniques. And again, once you start to do that, it starts to become a practice versus a tick box process. And then it starts to become muscle memory of how you operate in an organization.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. Next question. What are you saying, Conrad? You have a question? You don't. Okay. I've got a question for you, Marcus.
Fire away.
So we heard from Angela earlier about leadership, and in a number of the slides that you presented, the challenge of leadership enabling thinking comes up. How can we help our leaders to more effectively enable and unleash this powerful tool of critical thinking? What are your thoughts on that?
Brilliant question. We get this often. So 2 ways. First way is something the Army used to teach was called my 15%. So however much you're doing at work and whatever sphere of influence you think you have or haven't, we all have, and this is proven through an average of statistics, is we all have a minimum of 15% that we can make a difference in. So whatever your job, whether you're the janitor sweeping the floor or you're the CEO, you've got a 15% arc within which you can make a positive difference. So apply that there. If you then got multiple peers who can do the same, and we had exactly this. We were working with FEMA in Washington, D.C. last week. There was an individual in the room. She was a high contrarian. And at the break, she apologized for being very challenging in the session. I said, don't. I said, you're exactly what we need. She said, I'm just so frustrated. I'm getting nowhere at work. I'm doing what these things you're saying. I said, okay, how many peers have you got? I said, well, 3 or 4 of the other people in the room are my peers. I said, well, okay, think of the power. If you bring those 4 together and you're now 5, it's not you speaking up all the time. It's now the 5 of you. And if you speak together first to get your messaging aligned, then you're going to have a far more stronger impact. Another way is with data. Provide your executives, provide your leaders with the data and what's going on. Pulse surveys, engagement levels, morale, churn rate. I asked the CEO the other week about his churn rate. He said, what's that? I said, your attrition rate. How many people are leaving? Turned out they were losing 100% of their frontline operators every year, which he didn't know about. So find that sort of data that resonates with the individuals. What are their biases that they're facing into, and work around those and give them the facts and figures that are going to hurt, but make them pay attention. And then also just start sharing things. Be on LinkedIn. Give brown bag presentations, the old lunch and learns. Give individuals something that's above and beyond. And by sharing, hey, boss, check out this podcast that I listened to the other day. Really interesting. Look at this tool that we've been using as a team. And what tends to happen is, and we did this Machiavellian, we went into an organization, we trained 2 teams, and we gave one team a set of tools that we didn't give to the other. And we let them run for 6 weeks, and we came back in, and the boss was like, it was amazing. The difference in the outcomes, but that team was getting all the visibility. Executives were inquiring, hey, Steve, how come Sharon and your team have been doing such amazing work? So you start to get yourself, it's that thing, isn't it? If you want to be outstanding, stand out. And these tools allow you to stand out. So focus on my 15%, focus on sharing, focus on being the person who becomes the lighthouse where people look to, and then cascade that capability, not just across and down, but also upwards at any opportunity.
Thank you, Marcus. That kind of echoes what Angela was saying about taking responsibility for leadership and owning that. And this is a way that you can influence the people who lead you, people who manage
It is.
you. So,
and can I just build on that? Because I caught Angela's back end about her saying how she was quite direct and how that often backfires. I was the same. So with critical thinking, with these tools, you need to also have emotional intelligence and understand the application of these tools. Because again, I remember I was a young junior officer in the military. I had great ideas. I saw things going wrong, and I just called it out. I'd just say, that's bullshit. That won't work. This is going to fail. That doesn't go down well. However right I am, however right I will always be about certain things, it doesn't matter. If the recipient doesn't take it as intended, then they're going to ignore you, or you're going to get fired, or you're going to get a slap, or you're not going to get the promotion you're looking for. So using these tools, I've found really help you deliver your message in a far more receptive way. I call it disagreeing agreeably and being professionally provocative. Because if you just say, hey, Marcus disagrees all the time and he's always provocative, that's different to say, do you know what? Marcus agrees all the time, disagrees all the time, but he does it in such an agreeable way that I can't argue with him. So that's a really powerful way of doing this, understanding EQ with critical thinking and the tools.
Professionally provocative.
Indeed. Be it.
Show of hands, who's professionally provocative here? Don't be shy now.
Hard thing to be.
I got another question. Who's here with their boss? Okay.
See me after school.
Let's have some more questions for Marcus. Any more questions for Marcus?
I've updated the Menti as well. So if you want to jump back on Menti for later, you can just type your questions in there. Open to any questions.
Opportunity, folks. You have the ability to ask a wing commander some questions. Carpe diem.
Carpe diem, eh? Stop me and buy one.
Are there really no more questions for Marcus? I'm going to have to do the eye trick.
8 seconds of pause time normally gets people to speak.
Okay, Marcus, I think they're really, really shy.
It's a good job I'm not there, isn't it?
I tell you what, you would have, you definitely would have stirred them up. So red team thinking is actually being used across a very wide range of organizations. And we've seen with Think Right, Share, definitely leverage this. This is something which is so simple to use in your organization, and the effects are huge. And
game changing.
We have a saying in Jamaica, it says, one hand can't clap, which means you need two hands to clap. Well, the same applies to thinking power. The more brains you leverage, the better the outcome. So this is something that is super practical, but it produces really dynamic, demonstrable results, and it produces them quickly. So, Marcus, we are at a point where I don't think there are any more questions. I think you've answered them superbly. So I'd like to take the opportunity to really thank you for joining us.
Absolute pleasure.
I'd like to ask everybody to give Marcus another round of applause.